All of the dirt coming out about Joker 2 is way more entertaining than the actual movie. So they're actually giving accurate reports as to why this movie did not do very well. And they're right. The fatal flaw of this movie is turning the fans into the villains of the sequel, which it absolutely does. I don't see how anybody can argue against that. The movie is basically made to tell you why you enjoyed it wrong, which I got to say, it's a bold maneuver. Unfortunately, it did not work out very well box office-wise for Warner. Nobody showed up for this. Now, when you have a movie that has a disastrous box office like this, and it is disastrous, it's not going to make its money back. People are saying it needs to make about $400-something million to make any money. It could be right, maybe a little bit more, but $440 million, I think, is what I heard getting kicked around. But the blame game for Joker has begun. Who is responsible for this shit show? And it's not DC. In fact, a really interesting article from Variety dropped yesterday where they go over a lot of the problems that this movie faced. And I can tell you who's not responsible. DC Comics. The DC Studios. I think that's what they're calling themselves now, DC Studios. They're not responsible. In fact, it sounds like Todd Phillips, as they put it in here, gave them the finger. And I didn't even notice this, but I'll have to go back and take another look at it. I guess there's no DC logo at the start of the movie. It's actually at the end of the movie. Because DC had nothing to do with this. In fact, according to this article, which has a lot of interesting stuff in it, he locked them out. He locked them out. Called this more of a Warner Brothers movie. Took no notes from James Gunn. Wanted no notes from him, refused to take a look at the man's notes. Now, that's some arrogance, because Gunn is a very talented man. You could say what you want about him or whatever, but as far as the stuff that he makes, in my opinion, all of his comic book stuff has been great. He is a fan of the stuff, and I think he's proven that time and time again. Maybe more of a fan of the modern stuff, and I'm talking 90s and up. I'm not talking current day only. I think he's been a fan since the 90s and maybe late 80s. I think that's where he came in. I think he's been a fan since then, probably since he was a little kid. I could be wrong, but I've read some interviews and stuff that he's had, and it sure does sound like he is. Todd Phillips, I don't know about. I don't know a lot about him other than he made the Hangover movies and shit. But it sounds like he pretty much got a blank check and was allowed to do whatever he wanted. In fact, in this article, they talk about they could have shot the movie in London and it would have cost 20% less. He refused to do that. He pretty much got whatever he wanted. And I think one of the bigger things in here is that this movie never got in front of test audiences. I really do think this movie was made as a screw you to Warner and a lot of executives. He didn't want to do it, and he's already said he absolutely won't do a Joker 3, which I doubt he would even be asked to do a Joker 3. Got $20-something million for himself and, I think $50 million for Phoenix. Both of them got paid handsomely. But I didn't know that this movie had no test audiences. It was never shown to a test audience. The first time it was ever seen by anybody was at that France award show, which DC was also against, apparently. Not DC, Warner's didn't want it to premiere there. But Todd did, so it did. kind of a bold move by him, because all of his clout is now gone. All of that winning he got from the first movie and clout and like people thinking he's hot shit is all gone now. All that goodwill is gone, because this is a colossal failure of epic proportions. Probably one of the biggest failures, I don't know about all time, but it's a huge box office failure without a doubt. But you can tell there was tension, because at the premiere, two people weren't there. James Gunn and Peter Safran. So those are the studio heads over at DC Studios. They were not at the TLC Chinese Theater premiere. Meanwhile, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav dropped by the after-party at Sunset Tower and mingled with the film's two high-paid lead actors as the Meatless Sliders, Vegan Phoenix's idea, made the rounds. For all the star wattage on display, there were some notable no-shows, namely DC Studios toppers, James Gunn and Peter Safran. And that's the big thing in here. There is no love lost between those guys and Todd Phillips. Todd Phillips wanted nothing to do with DC during the making of the film, says one agent familiar with the director's unique carve-out, which allowed him to bypass any oversight from the brand's gatekeepers. Although Gunn has publicly supported the film on social media, Phillips has distanced himself from DC. As the animated title card sequence unspooled inside the iconic Hollywood cinema in the opening minutes, it became apparent that Phillips had just given DC the middle finger. There was no DC Studios logo. And there's so much more. So much more. If the first movie was about some down on his luck, mentally ill guy in a downtrodden city, it makes maybe 150 million worldwide, not a billion, says a source familiar with the internal awkwardness. People showed up because that guy was Joker. Gunn was busy directing, so they're downplaying tensions and trying to say that, Gunn was busy directing Peacemaker and that Safran was sick the entire time that film was getting made. So the good news for them is they're not going to get blamed for this, because DC had nothing to do with this movie. And it shows. I don't think they had much to do with the first one. And as they put in here, the message for this movie's fans is go F yourself. I've already done a video on that. It's true. The overreaching question being asked is, why spend $200 million to make and nearly $100 million to market a tentpole that ignores the DC fan base? That's a good question. Good question. So, I don't know. Does Todd Phillips rebound from this? This is a fascinating article. I didn't go through all of it, but the gist of it is that Todd Phillips pretty much made all kinds of demands, and they cut him a check and let him do whatever the hell he wanted. No oversight whatsoever. And DC Studios was locked out. Any demands that he made, he got. And this is the end result. Sometimes maybe people do need some supervision, and he got none, and this is what we got. And I have to ask again, do you think he was just mad at everybody and he wanted to go at the fans and Warner? Or do you think he just wanted to give Warner a middle finger and not the fans? I think he was just out to get everybody. I had no idea that he was such a bitter man. Because in my opinion, there's no other reason to make a movie like this. A movie that exists literally to just lecture fans of the first movie. That's what it felt like to me. Maybe you feel something different. I think they should have leaned in and just went with the musical idea or something and cut the courtroom drama. Maybe, do some weird version of Mad Love and do her actual origin. That could have been cool. But instead we got this piece of shit. Hopefully, one thing, maybe this will stop that stupid Bane. They're talking about doing a Bane movie like Joker, and I think somebody else. Just stop that, please. Stop. Joker was a one-off, and I hope this stops it. I do. I'm okay with stuff like the Penguin that takes place in a Batman world. That movie is directly connected to the Batman. But doing like Bane, what's it going to like break out? What is it going to be, a prison escape story? I mean, just stop it. Stop it. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about all of this. I'd like to hear from you. Also, if you would, please like, subscribe, share the video. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that notification bell, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.